Two flywheel machines, two very different approaches. Today, we're gonna be breaking down the Kratos Quest Station and the Exxentric kBox Pro, and I'm gonna let you know which one is best for you. Welcome to the Kurt Locker. My name is Curtis and this is my gym. This channel focuses on home gym culture, fitness related stuff, equipment, diet, supplements, everything, all the above. And today we're bringing you an extra special treat because I have been working hard for more than a year doing flywheel training on both the Kratos Quest Station and the kBox in order to be able to bring you a showdown, the showdown you've been asking for, which piece of flywheel equipment is better for you. On this side, Exxentric, with years, if not decades really, of flywheel training experience. They're for professional athletes, they're for professional rehab. They are very well defined and made in Sweden. And on this side, the Kratos Quest Station, which emerged in 2020, the new contender, maybe not quite as refined in some ways, which we'll get to, but offering things that the kBox doesn't offer by itself. Ultimately, the whole point of this video is to do a number of things. One of them is educate you on flywheel training, and the other is to flush out which one of these two units is best for most gym applications. Eccentric overload has always been found to be a very important part of any repetition when using gravity-based systems. And I mean dumbbells, barbells, kettlebells, anything that has a bell, medicine balls, slam balls, they all depend on gravity, weight being pulled back down to earth. What flywheel training sought to do was to change that up. Let's build up an incredible amount of force and be able to actually control that during the eccentric portion of the lift to do what we call eccentric overload. Now, there are a bunch of other ways to do eccentric overload. You can overload a barbell with what your max squat would be and do a purposefully failed rep going down to safeties. You can do the same thing with bench press. Eccentric overload is not a new concept, but being able to apply it for maximum repetitions, to be able to do a whole bunch of work that automatically adapts to the athlete, how hard the athlete is able to pull. Now, I have independently reviewed both the Exxentric kBox Pro as well as the Kratos Quest Station on my channel. You can see those videos. They'll be up here in the corner flashing periodically. Highly encourage that you go check those out because they are exhaustive. I have flushed these things out for literally over a year. I've been using flywheel training trying to figure out which is the best for you. If a video is too long of a format for you, I also highly encourage that you go check out the kurtlocker.blog where you can see the write-up version of this article. Real quick at the top of the video, both of these units were sent from Exxentric and Kratos so that I could do reviews on them. Both companies knew that I was going to be doing a comparison review. Both of them thought that was okay. I do not make any money if you choose to buy one of these things. I do have a discount code with Kratos, but I don't have a discount code with Exxentric, and those are visible down in the description box below. Now, there are a number of differences between the Exxentric kBox and the Kratos Quest Station, but probably the single greatest one is actually the plane of motion that you're able to use these in. Now, the kBox is limited to a vertical pull only. Now, you can use different tools to get a slightly more horizontal pull. For instance, you can install the angle adjuster, but for the most part, it only pulls up and down. Now, that up and down can be to the side and up and down slightly, but again, only up and down. Now, the Kratos Quest Station actually has what's called this remote anchor. What the remote anchor does is a couple things. One, it allows you to be able to pull both in the horizontal, or with the simple pushing of a button, you can quickly deploy it down, and now you can use it in the vertical, and it does all of those same angles side to side that the kBox can do. Now, the impact for you as a home gym owner or a studio gym owner is that with the Kratos Quest Station, provided that you have something to mount the vertical tube to, you're gonna get two planes of motion, essentially two for the price of one as far as machines go. With the kBox, you're only gonna get that single plane of motion, which can limit you, but there are very creative ways to be able to overcome the single plane of motion. Mounting options are also going to vary for the Quest Station. Right now, I have the Quest Station set up, and it's set up with my power rack being used with a upright tube. Now, this rack upright tube can be purchased, but the system itself comes with a wall mount tube, which I've traditionally used over along the wall. By having multiple options, Kratos is really doing a lot here to try to cater to the most possible customers that are out there. So if maybe you're using a power rack that has wings along the back side of it, and you want to use one of them for, say, a cable trainer, and then use the other side for a flywheel system, that would be a really good application of the Kratos vertical rack tube. If you're someone that has the floor space available and you can dedicate a space that's along the wall, you can then just use the vertical wall tube, and you're able to get that horizontal plane of motion easily into your space. The other option with the Kratos Quest Station is you can just use it independently of the vertical tube. You do not need to use the vertical tube in order for the Kratos Quest Station to work, but at that point it just becomes the same vertical plane of motion that's available with the kBox. Another advantage of the Kratos Quest Station, and really the versatility that comes with it, is that it's available in this. This is the traditional stained platform. It's also available in a more rubber coated platform, which has like a grippy material that's applied. And then you can also get it in my preferred format, which is the without platform. And essentially what it does is it eliminates the platform altogether, and you get the mounting bracket that essentially installs this remote anchor to the floor, and it mounts flush built into the floor, which is how I typically have my station set up. What this does for you is it provides a more uninterrupted gym space, making it so that it's a nice seamless integration into an already amazing space. Now, this doesn't mean that the kBox doesn't also come with different mounting options. Similar to the Quest Station, where you can mount it into the floor, and then you don't need to worry about standing on the platform to hold this down while you're doing movements. You can also purchase one of two different options from Exxentric, so that you can mount it directly to the floor, making it easier to do lifts where you would stand off the platform. Think split squats, think barbell, not barbell, but think rows, those kind of movements where you're maybe pulling to the side or stepping to the side, or if you're moving really athletically with a lot of velocity. Now, I haven't been able to test these two options because they weren't provided by Exxentric, but Exxentric has done a good job building two different layers. Really three different layers. So the third layer, which is what we have here, is just the kBox Pro on the ground. Now I can pick this up and move it. It's relatively lightweight for an all steel constructed box. The second option, which is kind of the in-between, the compromise, is you can get an anchor that you install in the floor and essentially uses a strap. And that strap goes through a loop located on the bottom of the platform, right here in the middle, that allows you to secure the platform down to the floor. The fourth option, which is like your most permanent installation, where the second option is a little bit more, we're gonna do athletic movements, let's strap this down so it doesn't dance around on us. The fourth option is a much more permanent solution, and it comes with 4 different bolts, and you basically just bolt through the feet, and it grabs a hold of the platform and it holds it down on each of the 4 feet. Another key difference between the Exxentric kBox and the Kratos Quest Station is going to be the platform size. Now, the platform on the kBox sits higher up off the ground, and it really interrupts whatever space that you put it in to a pretty large degree. You're gonna have to step over this thing and make a conscious effort because it's essentially the same level as a normal step up. The platform is large enough to be athletic in your movements and to do all sorts of different movements on the kBox itself, but again, it's just a little bit higher off the ground. Now, the Kratos Quest Station has a much larger platform overall, but that larger platform is integrated closer to the floor, only standing just over 2 inches off the ground. What this does is it does still interrupt your space, and technically it does interrupt more of your space, but it interrupts it in a slightly different way. Stepping over a 2-inch obstacle is a lot less daunting than stepping over a 10-inch obstacle. Now, with that being said, the big reason that I prefer to have mine built into the floor and over along the wall is because I tend to move benches around my gym, and even though it's only 2 inches off the ground, that 2 inches does still interrupt my space enough where I prefer it be built into the ground. And then by building it in, I essentially have an unlimited size platform because I'm just using the floor. Now, the last physical difference between the Exxentric kBox and the Kratos Quest Station is going to be in the choice of products used to build it. We can see with the Kratos Quest Station that we're getting wood, steel, high quality products. The pulleys are like super high quality. A lot of this is very reminiscent of like hardware that you find on sailboats, where it's just beefy enough to be incredibly strong, but it's very sleek and not clunky and large. Now, the one area, if you watch another review that Coop did where he compared these two units, is he talks a little bit about the 3D printed parts that are on the Kratos Quest Station, and in my opinion, I think he was a little bit harsh in his criticism and in the use of 3D printed parts. Coop essentially said that it made it feel like a beta test. And although I can understand what he means by this, I also look at it as a way of Kratos to keep the price down on their products, because if they were to have to make molds for each and every single one of these little plastic pieces that basically just form the housing, we would be left in a position where we're paying a lot more for the exact same unit. So the 3D printed parts don't bother me. I honestly barely ever even notice that they're there. They're all basically just back here on the back of the housing, and everything else is either aluminum, steel, or actual like formed plastic part. The most visible 3D printed item is actually the foot lever holders, and I actually barely noticed that these are 3D printed. And all the parts that are 3D printed on this unit are very well made. They're using a quality 3D printer with quality, I'm thinking just PLA, but again, no issues with them. So again, to summarize the Quest Station and the materials used, you're getting Baltic birch for the top, and that Baltic birch is also used on their more grippy rubberized coating. Then you're getting steel, and you're getting high quality parts everywhere with some 3D printed parts integrated within. Now on the Exxentric, you're getting a much more refined product. And by refined, I don't mean it in like a more positive or negative way. You're just getting a more like commercialized product. It's been out there for longer. It doesn't really have much as far as plastic parts. The only plastic parts that it have are on the bottom, and that covers electronics. Other than that, most of the things used on this are like this rubber, the rubber on the bumper. We have steel for the pulleys, steel for the discs. This is the kBox Pro has the steel base. And like I said, the plastic parts are really limited to the bottom and basically limited to where the battery is for the electronics that run the K meter, which we'll cover later. So versatility and compact design are the things that matter most to you. Perhaps you've already made your mind up, but let's go a little bit deeper and let's actually look at the mechanics of how these different machines work. We're going to start with the Kratos Quest Station. Now the Kratos Quest Station, like I talked about, essentially takes the flywheel unit that's traditionally put on the platform. If you look up most designs for flywheel platforms, it's essentially the exact same mounting except for your belt or your drive strap hooks directly to this and goes up and down from where the inertia disc is loaded. What Kratos has done that's different than every other brand out there that I've seen is they've used this remote anchor. Now what this remote anchor does is it allows you to take this and pass it to the remote anchor where it goes straight up and down. Now if we look, as the unit goes all the way down, it's going to wind up the webbing into here. I do cover how these operate a lot more in the standalone review, so we're going to skip a lot of that. But if we look on the repetition, when it gets to the end of the range of motion, the disc keeps going in the same direction, but it starts to wrap up the webbing on the bottom. And you'll see it'll switch back to the top. But what you're seeing actually on this end is that the line of pull is straight up and down and consistent in between each and every single rep. Now, if we were to take that and move it up to the horizontal pull, you see that we get the exact same thing. Essentially, when it moves up here, the remote anchor just flips upside down and you're still just pulling between these two acetyl rollers. And although this does have to flip around and re-wrap everything back up around the axle at the end of the range of motion, this movement doesn't change at all. Now, this is a very nuanced difference because the kBox and really most other platform designs operate on a much different principle. So as I pull up here, we see that we get to the end of the range of motion and we watch that strap move just like it does on the Quest station, but on the kBox, because of the design of it, we're pulling straight onto the actual drive shaft. It actually moves the anchor point over here. Now, it's not moving it really all that far. The actual drive shaft is only about 15 millimeters thick, but where it really makes a big difference is if you're doing something where you pull a lot of webbing out, because the more webbing that you pull out, the more it has to be wrapped up around the actual axle at the end of the range of motion. Again, when we're all the way down. Now, the more webbing that's wrapped up, the farther it moves it away. But is this actually a big problem? I really don't think so. It was noted in Joe Gray's review. It was noted in my review of the kBox that this is something that occurs. And I think that in barbell training, we look at that and we think that that's a massive deal. But the more I've thought about it and the more that I've used it, it's really not as big of a deal as I think we make of it. Now, kBox is aware of this, and they've actually put a design in here where they have a line on the rubber bumper that's on the top of the platform. That line represents the center of pull, and although it is to one side, and it's basically on the side where the webbing take-up is located, I find that the line is sort of like pretty close. But really, I just don't really think it's a big deal at all because of one of two things. One, if you are worried about side to side, like a lateral shift and being over by a little bit, you can always face sideways on this unit and it would pull you forward and backwards. But again, we're talking like maybe 5/8 to 1 inch. 5/8 if you're doing like squats, or if you're doing a deadlift motion, or most rowing motions, it's like 5/8 of an inch. And I would be willing to bet that most people have that much of a deviation when they're just doing standard barbell lifts anyways. You just notice it because mechanically it's built in here. Now, the other thing when it comes to like the feel of the movement is it's gonna be any sort of internal resistance. Now, if I pull on the Exxentric kBox and I let it go, we see that it actually slows down pretty quickly. So if I pull on it, it'll kind of slow down on its own. Now, that's because there is a certain amount of resistance that's just inherent in the design of the system. With the kBox, you don't get like any rattling, there's no free motion at all. This plunger is spring loaded, and that's what actually holds the plate on. So it's like kind of rattly there, but when you put that on, it clicks into place, and it's actually held on really, really tight. Now, because of the tight tolerances and there's absolutely no lateral shift built into it, you end up with some inherent resistance. Where does this impact you? It's really only on like the small disc, and what really happens is you build in that concentric force, and as it spins, it doesn't have enough energy to actually operate the unit by itself. Now, the medium disc, which is what I think I have loaded right now, is the smallest disc that I can use for like upper body movements, where I can really depend on it to fully go through the eccentric phase, and I'm actually able to resist the eccentric phase. And really what I'm doing here is I'm splitting a hair, but the difference on the Quest station is significant, but it comes with its own little negative as well. Now, if I were to throw a smaller disc, so I'm gonna throw, this is the XL disc, I'm gonna throw the medium disc on, so it's the same as the kBox is right now. Now, when I take this and I put it on there and I were to start pulling on it, let's wind it up, you get a little bit of slop. You might be able to hear a little bit of it. And again, it's not dangerous, it's not bad by any means, but it's more freewheeling. It feels just a little bit more liberated. There's no internal resistance built into the system. The wheel will continue to move with almost no resistance put in it, and it's actually to the point where sometimes if you're using the app to track, it'll actually pick up an entire other repetition that occurs that you actually didn't pull, and it's just from the system continuing to spin ever so slightly. These are two high quality units that both perform super well. It's just that this one feels better with lightweight discs, which may be important if you're doing a lot of upper body work. And again, this comes with the vertical tube. So when you're working in the horizontal plane and maybe doing shoulder abduction work or something, it's going to probably feel better at those lighter weight discs, especially if you're coming back from an injury, etc. The kBox, the disadvantage is that with the lighter disc, in my opinion, I find that it doesn't have enough inertial force to actually take up the rest of the webbing. Flywheel training in general is a powerhouse for building up that eccentric strength, and it's doing it in a way that's intelligent, smart, it's novel, it's cool, and it's really one of those things you have to feel to appreciate. Get that unmistakable overload training on some of your favorite and maybe not so favorite lifts, and definitely reap the rewards of that increase on the eccentric overload. Now, when it comes to my opinions, where I think that the kBox excels is the eccentric kBox excels when it comes to certain athletic movements, specifically when it comes to training people in that vertical plane. So if you're training someone and you're doing really quick, like lunges, pulls, I think it pulls ahead just a little bit. Not by much, just a little bit. Where the Kratos Quest Station pulls ahead is its versatility. It's able to do a lot more in a single unit. Now, you do need to have an upright or a wall in order to be able to do the horizontal movements. However, the purchase of a single unit gets you both capabilities built into a single machine, and it performs incredibly well. It's also got the remote anchor, which gives you that single plane. It's always straight up and down, no matter which rep that you're on. In order for the kBox to do the same, you would have to pair it with the Exxentric K Pulley, which is an entire other system that has an entire other drive shaft that you have to get, and that's going to be twice as much equipment, and that's really not what people are looking for, at least in the home gym space. This leaves us with just basically, for versatility, for maximum use out of a single unit, the Kratos Quest Station is the clear winner. Now, for simplicity, plug and play, well-defined parts, an application that as it stands right now is just significantly better, we're talking the Exxentric kBox is a significantly better purchase. For the space-conscious home gym owner, the Kratos Quest Station, because again, that lower profile is a lot easier to step over, and you can build it into the floor, and if you build it into the floor, it actually costs like $800 less. So you're getting a much better value and a much better space-conscious decision. But when it comes to data-driven, it's really a toss-up at that point. So when it comes to the data is the same that you get off of each one inside of the application. The only difference is that Exxentric, with that plug-and-play advantage, comes with that algorithmic number that can be a little bit easier to use versus the Kratos Quest Station, which again, that pounds of force is the greatest metric that I get off of the Rep 1 sensor. So in conclusion, we have two absolutely phenomenal machines. We have the Exxentric kBox, we have the Kratos Quest Station. Which one do I think is best for most people? I'm gonna have to go with the Kratos Quest Station. The reason that I'm coming to that conclusion is based on the price tag and the versatility built into a single unit. And that's it. That's where Kratos Quest Station really just drives it home as far as winning this fight. With both machines, you're getting very high quality parts, you're getting amazing customer support from both of them. But which Flywheel machine do you think would fit your training better? I wanna know your comments. Leave them down below. Do you think that the Kratos Quest Station should be the victor, or are you more of an Exxentric kBox fan? New kid on the block, 2020 foundation. Exxentric has been around for a lot longer. Tell me what you think in the comments down below. That's been it for this video. I appreciate each and every single one of you that watch every week, and I'll see you next time.